My name is Vicki Ferrara. I'm the founder and the lawyer at Worldwide Surrogacy. With me is Molly Corcoran. Molly is an administrative assistant at our office who works on the screening of the surrogates. And she was a surrogate herself, so you can see the wonderful, lovely women that become surrogates through our program. So basically, I want you to know that I'm gay. I have a partner and a couple of kids, and that's how I got into surrogacy about 12 years ago. I've always been an out lawyer. I've been a lawyer for over 30 years. And about 12 years ago, people started to ask me if I could help them find a surrogate, and that's when we started our agency. So we've been thriving and flourishing ever since. And every year we grow a little more to the point where now we have between 60 and 70 births every year. We have a full team of people in Fairfield, Connecticut. That would be your team if you worked with us. And I'm always available to you. Even though you'd have a case manager from the team, that would be your point person. I do pride myself on being always available. You can always find me, reach me. I usually weigh in on legal matters and insurance matters. But anything that comes up, the buck stops here. So you can talk to me. One of the most important things that we do, I think, is the screening of the surrogates. I really believe that if we do the screening thoroughly, then the rest of the journey will go well. We cannot control the Mother Nature things, but we can really minimize the risk of having negative communication or person not following doctor's orders by the screening. So we do we have a licensed clinical psychologist evaluate every surrogate and every surrogate's husband or significant other. We have a licensed private investigator do background checks on every surrogate and every surrogate's husband or companion. We have a team at our office that gets all of her medical records from her pregnancies and reviews them for completion. We get a complete package to send to your chosen medical clinic, and then we get the opinion from the doctor, your fertility doctor, on whether or not she's approved. We have a social worker on our staff that does a social work study, and that's another view of her from a therapeutic perspective. And then what we do is when you have a surrogate, that surrogate will have a support person. So every surrogate in our family of parents and surrogates has a support person besides your case manager. This support person will keep in touch with her every week or more when things are happening, like the embryo transfer time or if there's any medical issue. So that's our two-track system of case management, which I think is very effective because the two people, the surrogate support person and the case manager, are working together continually to make sure that you have the foundation that you need for a good, safe journey. So I like to say that there are three phases to the journey. The first is this matching phase when you're waiting for your surrogate. It takes about 6 months to find your surrogate. It can be sooner. It's sometimes longer, but rarely. We really dedicate ourselves to 6 months or under. And during that time, your case manager is keeping in touch with you and letting you know how the search is going, and then eventually showing you profiles. During that time also, you might think about finding your medical clinic and an egg donor and making your embryos. That way, when you have your surrogate, you have your embryos already, and we can go right into the next phase, which is the medical phase. So eventually you'll be matched, and then you'll go into a contract with your surrogate. She will have her own lawyer outside of the agency. You could have me as your lawyer or a different lawyer if you choose. Sometimes you need a lawyer in the state where she lives. Like, for example, Illinois requires that 2 Illinois lawyers do the contract. So if you needed another lawyer, we, as your agency, would find that lawyer for you or help you find a lawyer. You would actually have to choose to work with the lawyer, but we would be assisting you every step of that way. So we wouldn't just ever say, hey guys, you need a lawyer in Illinois, go find one. We would be making the referral, making the connection. And then as your agency, we would always keep in touch with that lawyer to be able to make sure that the lawyer's doing the work, the process is getting moved along, and eventually you have what you need to move forward. So the contract, and then during that same phase, this medical phase, your surrogate goes to your clinic and she begins the medication to get her body ready for the embryo transfer. So that would be something, again, we're going to interface directly with your medical clinic. We know them, they know us. We're all working together as the team supporting you and your surrogate to have this baby. And then eventually she goes through an embryo transfer, and hopefully you have a baby, maybe the first time. There's a very high success rate for having a pregnancy within 3 embryo transfers. It's like 99%. So if all goes well, you'll have a pregnancy within 3 tries, and then you go into the third phase, which is the pregnancy phase. By that time, you have a relationship with your surrogate, you're communicating back and forth, you're going to medical appointments if you want to, and we are constantly there for you if there's any issue like with getting medical records or having communication. Like I had one situation once where I had a European single dad and a surrogate in Florida, and he was worried that he wasn't getting enough communication from her, and she was complaining that her phone was broken. And so we, as the agency, we sent her to the, I don't know if it was Verizon or AT&T or what, and we said, buy a phone, and we paid for it. And she started texting him every day, and there was no more issue. So that's the kind of agency we are. We're very practical. We're very solution-oriented. Wrinkles can come up, but we have a lot of experience and a lot of expertise on how to navigate and manage these things. So most importantly during the pregnancy, other than, of course, the healthy pregnancy, is that you become the legal parents or parent of your baby at the time of birth. So that is another thing that we do or supervise. So if it's Connecticut surrogate, I can do the legal work for you. If it's a surrogate in, say, for argument's sake, Pennsylvania, then we're going to help you find the responsible, competent lawyer in Pennsylvania to do your pre-birth order. And we are going to, on your behalf, keep in touch with that lawyer and make sure the work is getting done, so that at the time of the birth or before the birth, you have a copy of your order, the surrogate has a copy, the hospital has a copy, and the State Department of Vital Records has a copy. So we're always there to make sure next step is happening, this step is happening, that's happening, and you should be able to enjoy the process of having a baby. It's a complicated way to have a baby, but if you have the right professional team in place, you can really enjoy this process. So let's talk a little bit about cost through our agency. The overall cost on the surrogacy side, so not your medical clinic, I think you have to think about $80,000 to $90,000. And it breaks down into 3 or 4 major components. There are other miscellaneous costs, but they'll fall within that 80 to 90. But the 4 major ones are, our agency fee is $25,000. The only thing we ask you up front is the first half, so $12,500. And then you don't pay anything more until you're matched with a surrogate. So you're not going to put the whole kit and caboodle up front. Just that payment to get us going, to put some resources toward our recruiting and screening processes. And then the other components are, the surrogate compensation is the biggest piece. So that's going to be, I think you're exposed to about maybe $45,000 to $50,000. Tomorrow there's a panel on what goes into surrogacy contracts and budgeting, and I'll be on that panel, so you'll get a lot more detailed information about what we're talking about when we talk about $45,000 or $50,000 to the surrogate. But there are some other components. Legal fees, billed separately, about $10,000 or a little less. You have a pre-birth order, you have a contract with your surrogate, you have her lawyer, so think in terms of $8,000 to $10,000 for your legal fees. And then some variables can be insurance. Some surrogates have insurance. If they have insurance, they usually ask for a little higher compensation in their base compensation in their contract. If they don't have insurance, then we have to figure out a way to get it. And again, that's something that we're going to help you with. We're not insurance brokers, but we're going to give you advice and guidance on where you and we can get the insurance for the surrogate. So a lot of it's done through Obamacare. We're now in the open enrollment period. We're working on getting insurance for some of our surrogates. There are other options for insurance through Lloyd's of London, especially if you're having a single baby. It's a high policy premium, but it's not terrible. If you're thinking of having twins, it would probably be prohibitive. And then, those are the main costs. I think I could break down the surrogate contract a little bit. Like, she gets a base compensation, say $35,000, and then in addition to that, you're going to see things in the contract like a maternity close or lost wages or embryo transfer fee. So again, you'll see a detailed list tomorrow with all of those costs and fees. But the thing that we can do for you is really minimize risk and really take care of you through the process. Again, so you can have an enjoyable time having your baby and have a relationship with your surrogate that will be really rewarding and positive and fulfilling. The only problem with surrogacy in the U.S., and you know this already, is the cost. It's obviously very daunting for people. And there are some ways to deal with that, maybe loans, maybe GPAP, Gay Parents Assistance Program, maybe family. But what we can do is we can really protect you and minimize the risk financially. We can minimize the risk ethically. We can minimize the risk legally, so that you're protected with this team of people that's surrounding you to help you have your baby. We are in Fairfield, Connecticut. We have an amazing team, very, very dedicated to this work. Like, we get that it's not really a business or a job, like we're helping people to have children. And that is very resonant for me, especially as a gay woman, having had to plan my way of having children in an alternative way. I was, fortunate that I didn't have to pay the type of money you have to pay for surrogacy, but I still had to plan and get a doctor and have a lawyer and get a sperm donor and have a co-parent adoption with my partner when it wasn't legal in Connecticut, and we moved to Massachusetts so we could do a co-parent adoption. So there's all these things that we have to go through to have our children, but it's very possible. If you can weather the cost, everything else is very doable and possible, and you can have your children. And I would be honored to talk to you more about this process and answer your questions and help you if you would so choose to work with our agency.